in the middle of Chav Gimel, in the middle of the 23rd chapter, and we were discussing how mitzvahs are called Ivarim de Malka, which are the limbs of Hashem. It's not only something that Hashem told us to do, which would automatically make the mitzvah special, noble, and dear, and the whole healthy way to follow, but it's much more than that. The mitzvahs are Hashem, Eivarim de Malka, they're limbs of Hashem, and because they're limbs of Hashem, so when you do the mitzvah, you embrace HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So what and not only what embraces HaKadosh Baruch Hu, what becomes part of the Ratzon HaElyon, what becomes part of Hashem when the Jew performs the mitzvah? It's every part of the performer. In other words, every dimension within the Jew who performs the mitzvah, it's his godly decision, the energy which comes from the godly decision which performs the mitzvah, the actual performance of the mitzvah, the physical energy which is involved in performing the mitzvah, the physical hand, as he gave an example, which gives tzedakah. So the hand itself, the hand which gives tzedakah, is also consumed and becomes part of this Ratzon HaElyon, becomes part of, as we use the expression, it leaves the status of being part of as a creation and becomes part of the Creator, becomes part of the Borei Olam, because this is the Ratzon HaElyon, the most deepest part, dimension of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. As we explained, this is why Hashem created everything, and in order there should be and to the extent that He created this physical world, not only Olamot Elyonim, the spiritual and supreme worlds, but in the end He came to create this physical world, and in this physical world is the Tachlit HaKavanah, the ultimate objective, which is to make HaKadosh Baruch Hu a dwelling place, the Tachtonim, in this physical world, through the physical, through the material, through the person, which again is also a physical and material and physical being, but with the performance which is done with the physical dimension of man, the performance of the mitzvah which is done with a physical object. That's where the Ratzon HaElyon, the most deepest parts of Hashem's desire, is implemented and actualized and brought into fruition. So then, therefore, the whole experience of the mitzvah, may it be the godly energy which decides to do the mitzvah and travels all the way through the entire experience of this, everything which is involved in doing the mitzvah. Even he says, even the physical yad, mechalek tzedakah, or the lashon, the tongue which speaks words of Torah, etc., etc. Then he concluded, if you remember, and I want to just mention this part again, even though we pretty much made it clear why. He gives the reason why the avis are called merkava, the avis are called the chariots. Why were the avis are called merkava l'Kadosh Baruch Hu?
Had no will of their own.
So he said, what?
They had no will of their own.
Because they have no will of their own. And I said this, we mentioned this last week as well, but I want to just re-emphasize. It doesn't mean that they didn't do neged Ratzon HaElyon, because there's many people, if you have, for example, a servant, in the end, he could also ultimately, and would also ultimately, obey the master's dictates and the decrees, or you call it the master's word, right? Decrees usually more applicable to a king, but let's say a master and a servant. The servant will obey the master's word, the master's dictate, and so on. But the Aves were not only called Avdei Hashem, they were called a Merkava, and this is the difference between an Eved and a Merkava. Eved, even though a loyal Eved is very much trained and appreciates and is excited to do for his master, but sometimes the Eved, like the Gemara says, Avde befkere nichaleya, Eved likes a state of hefker, he likes not to do, but he compels himself to do what the master wants him to do. So it's also a demonstration of subordination, subjugation, bittul, self-nullification to the grander desire. But yet, what?
Eved doesn't come from his own will, and we do mitzvot. The merkava is from their own will.
Oh, but the Eved could still have his own desire, not to do the Ratzon of Adon.
Of course.
But yet he'll compel himself, mikivan shu Eved, because he's a servant. So time and again, He'll compel himself. He'll compel himself to do the ratzon of his master. But you can't say that there's certain days he comes to work or he gets up in the morning and he's not interested. Lo balo, he's not interested, but I have to do it anyways because I'm a servant. And I'm a servant, I got to do it even though I don't want. So when you call the obvious, there were also Avdei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is also a big term called so much we call Eved Hashem. It says Moshe Rabbeinu Eved Hashem. But starting from Avraham Avinu, and obviously Moshe Rabbeinu included, but starting from Avraham Avinu, they had another this term of Merkava. Merkava shows in a more profound and a deeper bittul to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, self-nullification to God, even more than an Eved, if you will. Because the Merkava doesn't even have its own desire. When the rider, the Rochev, gets onto the Merkava, it's not that the Merkava says, I really want to maybe go left, but because you are the rider and you are in charge and you have authority over me and I have to submit myself to you, therefore I'm going to go right. Because you have a desire to go right, the Merkava never even pipes up. It never even suggests, doesn't have its own suggestion, doesn't have its own desire. It's all about the Rochev. It's all about the rider. It's not that I want to go this way, but I'm compelled to go your way. Like we said in an example, that it could be by an Eved, something like that. Not always. Sometimes an Eved is so used to doing Ratzon of his Adon, of his master, that he also kind of is in a constant state of self-nullification to his master. But it could be, I'm just giving an example, it could be that an Eved can get up one morning and say, I'm not interested, but I'll do it anyways, because I'm an Eved. Merkava there's never a state throughout the lifetime of the Merkava that he should get up or get up. Can use the word get up also. He's never in a state in the Merkava say, I want to do it another way. I'm not interested being the Merkava today. I'm not interested in going right. I want to go left. There's never a state in the Merkava. It's only about the Rochev. Wherever the Rochev wants to go, that's Chatchila in the onset. That's the only where it's going. Only where the rider is going. And this is the unique and auspicious name with the Avis which Avraham and Yaakov received. That they weren't, it's not the Pirush that they had their own desires, but because Hashem is Adon Kol Ha'olam, He's the master of the world, and because He's the master of the world, therefore I'll submit myself to you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that's the life of the Avraham and Yaakov. They always did what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted. Now, it's much deeper than that. That they never had the expression of the Avot, Heim Hei Merkava, they never had L'chatchila their own desire. Everything about their Ratzon was Ratzon HaElyon, was the Ratzon of the Rochev, of the rider, in this case, Rochev, which with a capital R would be the Rochev of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu had certain accomplishments in this world. Just like a rider which wants to go from point A to point B. So he hops onto the chariot and it goes from point A to point B. The Rochev in this case is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which wants to go from point A to point B, and let's use it, he wants to be expressed here in this physical world. Avraham and Yaakov was just there to bring the Rochev, which is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, from point A to point B, to do whatever he wants it to be done. So this is the profound title, or the title which demonstrates the deep submission and self-subordinance of Avraham and Yaakov to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now, why does he bring it over here? We're dealing with every average Jew which is doing the mitzvah. Why does he bring Merkava? Why does he bring the special and unique bitul of the Avis to HaKadosh Baruch Hu when you're dealing with the average person who does the mitzvah? The answer, because he really wants to tell you, he says, V'zeu Shomer Azal, he wants to tell you that in the end of the day, this is what is really transpiring when you're doing the mitzvah. And getting back to the term which is used about mitzvahs, that a mitzvah is called Eivarim de Malka. They're called the limbs of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And he showed you before, a limb is always batul to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. A hand, for example, which one day wakes up and says, I'm not interested, and somewhat the energy has to flow into the hand and compel the hand to move, or compel the fingers to move in a certain direction, then you know it's not a healthy hand, it's not a healthy fingers. A healthy hand doesn't have a problem with today I'm not interested. It could be all of you is not interested to go take the hammer and use the hammer. That's another thing. I'm talking about from the perspective of the nefesh. A healthy hand, it's all about an expression of the soul, without any dictate, without any tzivu. You don't have to command the hand to move. A healthy hand is automatic. It's just an expression of the nefesh. It's a physical aver, it's a physical limb, but it expresses the nefesh without any tzivui, without any dictated. That's why it doesn't take time from the nefesh to express itself in the hand. This is the similarity of the Merkava, and this is what we accomplish when we do a mitzvah. Because the mitzvah is a varim de malka, they're all about the HaKadosh Baruch Hu, they're the limbs of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So when a person shakes the lulav and esrik, for example, he is becoming right now completely part of the experience of the BAYT, of the Creator, of God Himself. So there's that similarity. That's where this Nekuda Merkava is synonymous with the performer of the mitzvah. The only thing is that by the Aves, it was completely from A to Z. They're 24 hours, and all about them were Mikaimei Ratzon HaElyon, in a way of this Merkava, this Bittul, this self-nullification. But we can do that as well. For that matter, it says, there's a famous medrash which says that everybody could really say, Matai Yagiu Masai Lamasei Avaisai Avraham Yitzchak, that we could all ask ourselves, when is my actions going to come to the actions of Avraham Yitzchak? Anybody could ask himself, because if you think about it, when we will do mitzvahs the way we're supposed to do mitzvahs, and every mitzvah which comes into into our every mitzvah which we're when it's an opportunity to do the mitzvah, if it's sukkahs, if it's the lulav and esrog, if it's tefillin, if it's lighting the Shabbos candles, whatever mitzvah comes to hand and we perform the mitzvah, to some degree we're moving into that territory which is the Avraham Yitzchak Yaakov territory, because that is the similarity of the limb to the Merkava. The limb, a healthy limb, there's no disconnect, there's no two entities. There's the nefesh shetzarich litzavot la'ivan, to maneuver, to move. Not at all. A healthy hand is just it just expresses the soul. Like a merkava is just there for the rider. So when we do mitzvahs all the time, we move in like to Aves territory, to the territory of merkava. That's the reason why the Alter Rebbe brings the Aves. Even he's dealing with the individuals performing the mitzvah. So I just felt I'd repeat that before we go on. We're holding Now if we'll turn to get it exact, if you'll turn the pages all together, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's right after the 3 dots. It's easier to find it because, as you see in the slab in the middle of the page, there's 3 dots, shalosh nikudot. It's not numbered, but the line starts, the page starts Shekol Eivarehem. There's 3 dots. That's the way it starts. The 3 dots right in the middle.
Yeah.
You have it? Got it? Okay. So we go on, and Alter Rebbe is going to say something very interesting over here. So till now, this is all based on this, what we said, that Torah. The Torah is called Arieh. The Torah and HaKadosh Baruch Hu are one entity. It's not there as a God, which is telling us about His Torah, telling us His mitzvahs, and suggesting us these important ways or laws or rules how to live with, how to conduct ourselves rather. But it's more than that. Torah is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The mitzvahs are called limbs of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Eivarim de Malka. So the Rebbe says that's Bechlalus, the package of Torah mitzvahs. But the Rebbe is coming to say over here, after these 2 dots, after these three stars over here in the English text, that between Torah mitzvahs, Torah, the learning Torah, one connects himself to HaKadosh Baruch Hu even deeper, on a deeper level than someone who performs mitzvahs. And why so? So the Rebbe says that, we'll try to say this orally and then we'll see how it's in the words. The Rebbe says lashon that from this very expression, Eivarim de Malka, that itself tells you that it's as much as we emphasized before, and so it is, that the limbs are a mere expression of the soul, but you still cannot call a limb a soul. The Eivar, as much as it's a mere expression of the nefesh, but if you really want to dissect what is happening when a person moves his limbs, in the end of the day, it's the soul which is being expressed through the Eivarim, through the limbs. If you want to dissect it, it's 2 separate entities. ultimately we say when we want to bring out the virtue of mitzvahs, and not only we want to bring it out, it's so it is that Aver, so kol kulo, all about the Aver is just to express the nefesh. That's true. But when you, let's just look at these words. The kol kulo of the Aver is just to express the nefesh. Ze'atzmo mer, this in itself says that it's somewhat, to an extent, two entities. There's a lim, shekol kulo rak mivatet nefesh, just brings out the nefesh. That itself says that it's two entities. There's the nefesh and the limb. So the same thing when a person performs the mitzvah, he connects himself to HaKadosh Baruch Hu via HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Eivarim, which is the mitzvah is the Eivarim, the Malka. So when we do the mitzvah, we become one with the Eivar, with the limb of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is again connected to the nefesh of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. As opposed to when I learn Torah, it's not a matter of Eivarim Deman Eiver. Torah is the Ratzon Elyon. When Torah says, for example, I open up a Shulchan Aruch and I learn the halacha shekatuv, I learned the halacha that it says in the halacha one has to shake a lulav and esrog when it comes sukkos, right? That's halacha. What is this halacha? Halacha iraisa v'kuchabricha kol echad. Torah iraisa is another word for Torah in Aramaic, right? Torah is called iraisa in Aramaic. Also, the iraisa means meloshin.
But learning this and meditating on doing it without actually doing it, is that...
Obviously.
But, you know,
He doesn't say to learn, and once you're learning, you need not to do because you're connecting yourself more deeper via learning. No. He's saying you will learn Torah, and we do mitzvahs, but between the two, in what way do we connect ourselves more profoundly with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in the end of the day, through learning Torah even more, to doing mitzvahs? That's why in halacha, for example,
it renders it meaningless.
We'll soon see everything. Let's say in halacha it says with Talmud Torah kineged kulam. That's what it says.
The mitzvot help us to connect to the Torah.
What?
The mitzvot help us to connect to the Torah. No?
It's why does it help? Maybe to some degree it does, but if you think about it, it's independent. Let's take this very example we're giving. I shake a lulav and esrog. It's a mitzvah. I open up a Shulchan Aruch and I read in the halacha which says, in the 15th day of Tishrei, one is obligated to take a lulav and esrog and shake it. This is not just information. This halacha, this is God Himself. Torah and HaKadosh Baruch Hu are one. Torah doesn't only mean the Sefer Torah. Every halacha. Look in the 5th chapter of Tanya. Again, you could find it as well in Tanya online, which we mentioned a few times. You could, additional to the kosher tube, which is the one responsible for all this. But there's, with the text of Tanya online, you could look in chapter Hey. The Rebbe writes clearly. It's not only the Sefer Torah is part of a Kodesh Baruch Hu. Every halacha, you open up a Rambam, a Koret halacha, this is God. Halacha is God. So if you think about it, it could be it's independent. When I learn it, I'm learning God. When I do it, I'm connecting myself to God's limbs, because the mitzvah is a limb of a Kodesh Baruch Hu. So it's independent one with each other. I could learn with Chas v'Shalom not doing. I say Chas v'Shalom because learning will never substitute doing, right? In tachlis, the tachlis of limdat Torah, or the person has to learn, but the tachlit of everything is ultimately to do the mitzvahs, right? You have to do the mitzvahs. Torah. The Gemara says if someone says, I only have Torah, filo Torah ein lo. He doesn't have Torah because Hashem, in the end of the day, tells us to do the mitzvah, and we have to be shomrei Torah. I mean, we have to do what Hashem wants, because it's Exedus HaMelech, it's a decree, and of the King Melech Malcham Lachem HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We can't choose with the two, but one thing we can see, that in the end of the day, it's two separate experiences. One, I'm learning the halacha about lulav and esrog, and then I'm taking the lulav and esrog and shaking the lulav and esrog. So if you think about it, what is happening by both experiences, the experience of learning the Torah is deeper than experience of actually shaking the lulav and esrog. Why so? Because shaking lulav and esrog is a varim de malka. It's the limb of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And as much as we emphasized in last week's class that the limb is a mere expression of the soul, but in the end of the day, when you say those words, as I mentioned before, even saying the words, the limb is a mere expression of the soul, that itself, it's two entities, there's a soul and the limb is expression of the soul. So when I do the mitzvah, I connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but I connect to the limbs of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When I learn the Torah, the halacha is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Eiver Shel HaKadosh is not a limb of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The halacha is Hashem. So when I learn the Torah and I learn an halacha, I open a Shulchan Aruch, and actually it doesn't only pertain to Shulchan Aruch, it pertains to Gemara, Shulchan Aruch, Tanya, anything which is Torah. Not every book which someone writes and has some Hebrew letters is Torah. Something which is truly Torah. Anything which is truly Torah, if it's Chumash, if it's Tanakh, if it's Shmuel, if it's Tehillim, if it's Megillat Esther, it's a Gemara, it's a Medrash, it's Tanya, it's Halacha, it's Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, it's Halacha, it's Torah. And when I learn the Torah, I connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu even more than when I connect to mitzvahs, because mitzvahs are called Evarim de Malka, what Eiraisa v'Kuchabrichu, Kol Echad Torah itself is God. So when I learn the Halacha, there's no greater union with HaKadosh Baruch Hu than learning the Torah even more than fulfilling the mitzvah.
It's two separate things, but just learning halacha without doing it renders it meaningless.
I've said it very clear. You're right. I said it a few times. Obviously, one does not substitute the other. And you have to do the mitzvah because Hashem says to do the mitzvah. But when you're doing both, and we all do both.
More is learn the Torah.
What?
More important is learn the Torah. Yeah.
In other words, like this, the truth of the matter is,
and don't do, or you don't learn and do.
Don't say you don't do it.
They're going to tell you, you better don't learn and do than learn and don't do.
You don't do. It's more important.
when you do both,
sure.
When you do both, what he's telling you over here, the truth of the matter is, if you really want to say, if someone, for example, has the choice of doing both, you should rather do it than learning. If someone's going to learn about eating matzah on Pesach, the piece of matzah and eat it, it's a big sin. Because in the end of the day, sof davar, what did Shlomo Melech says? Sof davar kol nishma es elikim yirav es mitzvosav shmor. We have to guard the mitzvahs. That's what we're here for. The ultimate of everything is to do the mitzvahs. And we're going to soon see the superiority or the uniqueness of doing mitzvahs, even over learning Torah. We're going to soon see that. But right now, we're dealing with the specialty of Torah, and to be clear, the specialty of the connection of the Jew with God, which comes to learning Torah, even greater and more profound than the connection with the Jew with God than when he does mitzvahs. So he's doing both. Because a Jew learns Torah and does mitzvahs. But you're dealing with the union, with the unity, that union with God, which comes to learning Torah, it's much more profound than the union with God, which comes through mitzvahs. And this is what we're going to see it inside in the text. The thought and the machshava and hirhur really has the same translation. Let's see how he translates as meditation, thought and meditation of divrei Torah shebemayach, which is in the brain. The koach hadibur b'divrei Torah, the energy of speech in words of Torah shebepeh, which is in the mouth. Sheheim levushim hapnimim shel nefesh elikis. This is the inner garments of the godly soul. As we said, that the godly soul have three garments, just like we learned again, as you can see it in the earlier chapters, how there is the three garments of the animal soul and three garments of the godly soul. In the beginning of Perek Daled, which again you can find it on the website as well, the Alter Rebbe explains that just like a man, there's man himself, and then there's the garments which he functions with his garments. He goes out of his home, out of his own domain, in order to function together with his garments. One has to, right? The human convention dictates that we present ourselves with garments. Similarly, the neshama, there's the neshama itself, lahavdil, neshama itself, then there's the garments of the neshama, which through the garments of the neshama we go out and we perform the Torah mitzvahs b'olam hazeh. Machshava, dibur, maaseh. These are the three garments. And if you look there, you'll see why they're called garments as opposed to the neshama itself, which are the 10 sfirot of the neshama. That's the etzem of neshama. But there's the garment, machshava, dibur, maaseh. So maaseh is usually the garment, the levush hachitzoni, because it deals with the action, the performance of mitzvahs. Machshava v'dibur, the levush hapnimi shel haneshama, the inner garment of the neshama, because it captures an inner dimension of God, and it connects with the inner dimension of God more than the action connects with the mitzvah. Because as we've mentioned before, as we're going to see it inside again, while the action captures or connects with the Eivarim, the limbs of Hashem, the Machshava and Dibur connect with God Himself, not only with His limbs. And that's what he continues to say. How much more the godly soul itself, which is invested in these garments, kulam yuchadim mamash. They're all one. Totally one, with a complete unity with its supreme desire of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Not a chariot or as we use the expression, a limb to Hashem, or a chariot to Hashem, as even in the chariot, it's a separate entity. It's a chariot which is batel, which is nullified to the rochev. Torah is the rochev be'atzmo. Not only merkava leharochev, a chariot to the rider. Torah is the rochev. Torah is God. Not only the limb of Hashem, Torah is Hashem. So when I learn Torah, it's not only that I'm connecting myself to Hashem's limbs, but I'm connecting myself to the core, to the essence of Hashem itself. And that's what he says. Because the supreme desire of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that is the halacha itself. Shemaharherba, which you meditate, or medaberba, you think about it, medaberba, and you speak. Because shakol halachas, all the halachas you find in Shulchan Aruch, are details of the supreme desire of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is what aroused in HaKadosh Baruch Hu Ratzon, in his desire. He decided and he wanted Shedavar Zemuter, this is permissible, Oi kosher, or this is kosher, Oi patur, or this person is patur, as you look at Mishnayot or in Halacha. What is Halacha? It's about muter, kasher, patur, or zakai, which is all different scenarios and cases in halacha between the patur, the mutter, the kosher, and the zakai. Who decided that this person is patur and this person is chayav, this person is zakai, this person is chayav, or that's kasher, or this mutar, or that's asur, and so on, like it says v'chein lahefech, and so the other. Who decided? God decided. It's God's desire, and these are all details of God's desire. So when I open a Shulchan Aruch and I learn this halacha, which says this is mutter, kosher, pasul, or asur, or I'm learning God, because this is God. This is Ratzon Ha'elyon. And the same thing when you're dealing with Kol Tzirufei Otiyot Tanakh. Even I learn a story about Yoseph Atzadik. It's part of Torah. It's Otiyot of the Chabet Otiyot, the 22 alphabets, Aleph Beis, right? The 22 alphabets, and it's put into this Itziruf, this combination which expresses the pasuk in the Torah, or may it be a book of Tanakh, of Shmuel, of Yeshua, of Shoftim, or Megillat Esther, or Mishlei, or Keheles. This is Hamshachas Ritzoni v'Chachmasei. This is HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Ratzon, and this is HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Chachma. And when you're talking about HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Ratzon v'Chachma, is Miyuchedes Bein Sa Baruch Hu B'Tachlit HaYichud. It's one with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the ultimate unity. And the Alter Rebbe explains in the previous chapters that when it comes to God, it works different than when it is by man, based on the famous Rambam. And the Rambam says, Hu hamada, hu hayadua, hu hamada, hu hayodeh, hu hadavar hayadua. Which means, by man, let's take Chochmah, even Ratzon. But we can understand it by Chochmah. There is man, there is his brain, and through his brain, he captures a certain concept. That's how it is by man. 2 plus 2 is 4. That's something very simple and elemental. But let's take this idea. A child starts understanding that 2 plus 2 is 4. There's the child. Then he's gifted with a brain. Not everybody has the ability to understand everything. Because like a hand is a gift. Because you see people with Rahman al-Islam without a hand. They're living people, but they don't have a hand. Rahman al-Islam or any other limb. A brain is also a gift. Certain people don't have the ability to grasp even things which are simple. So when you do have the ability to grasp, it's because you're gifted with a brain. And then there's the davar hayadua, in this case which we gave, this concept that 2 plus 2 is 4. So there's 3 things coming together. There is me, my chokhmah, and this davar hayadua, this which I understand. So So when you think about Chachma shel Ben Adam, the Chachma Ben Adam, it's not necessarily its essence, not necessarily its core, it's not necessarily it's the real me. I was gifted with Chachma. So one is going to say the same thing. I'm recapping a little bit what Alter Rebbe writes in the first and second chapter, also in the fourth chapter. That we're saying this time and again, Zeratzon shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Zechachma shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's his desire, it's his wisdom. Maybe it's just his desire and his wisdom. Who says it's him? Just like by myself, me and my wisdom is not essentially one. It just comes together. I take my wisdom, and with this I understand something else. Maybe it's HaKadosh Baruch Hu Zato Davar. But we said this a few times, and again, the Alter Rebbe explains this based on this Rambam, which is by HaKadosh Baruch Hu v'chachmato echad. So when we say that the Torah is a chachma shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, or when we say that chachma is a ratzon shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's not only chachma shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu or ratzon shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, mikivan shehu v'chachmato echad, hu ratzono echad. So getting back to getting back to what we're learning over here, that when you learn these otiyot Tanakh, or you learn this halacha or that halacha, you're grasping HaKadosh Baruch Hu's ratzon. You're grasping HaKadosh Baruch Hu chachma, which HaKadosh Baruch Hu chachma and ratzon are one with HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'tachlis hayichud. Like this is the Rambam, which says hu yodea v'hu amad. That's one entity. And therefore, here we could see, okay, good evening, we're just going to finish this. You can always catch it online as well. Okay. But thank you.
You're only 15 minutes.
Okay, very good. But let's just see another few words over here. That because Hu HaYodeh V'Hu HaMadeh, it's all about God. That's why that's what it says. The Torah and God are essentially one. Because what is Torah? Torah is the ratzon shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Ma'azeh Torah is the chachma shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But if we say HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hu HaYodeh V'Hu HaMadeh, it's one. So when I learn Torah, I'm learning God. And that's what he concludes. V'lo eivarim de malka l'chud. Not only the limbs of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, ki pikudin like the mitzvahs. Because the limbs, as much as a limb is one with the nefesh, but the limb is a limb which is one with the nefesh. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Batzma is the nefesh. So when I use my levush hashlishi, which is the levush hachitzoni, the maseh, and then I engage in a mitzvah, so then I'm more like a merkava l'HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Merkava is batel ha'rochev, but it's not the rochev. It's batel ha'rochev. And that's what happens when I do a mitzvah. But when I learn Torah, Torah is the Rocheh Be'atzmo. Torah is Chachmat Zeritzeni Shel Kadosh Baruch Hu. But not to say Chachmat Zeritzeni Shel Kadosh Baruch Hu, Pirush is Chachma or Ratzon Shel a third party, or Shel rather of a Kadosh Baruch Hu as a second party. No. Hu v'Chachma Seyechad. Hu Ritzana Echad. Ayraisa v'Kutsha Bricha Kol Echad. So when I learn Torah with my thought, which my Levusha Pnimi, Machshava, and I verbalize the word of Torah, which is part of the experience of learning Torah, I connect to the core essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is a much deeper connection than doing a mitzvah, which is connecting to the limb of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that is the specialty of learning Torah, the connection, or the special. That's why ultimately in halacha we find the Talmud Torah connected kulam. Why is it in halacha like that? Because the halacha is telling us what's really happening in the experience of the person who's learning Torah. Why is the Talmud Torah connected kulam? Because when I learn Torah, I connect with a much more deeper and profound union with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, even more than the union which comes of the performer of the mitzvah with the mitzvah and ultimately with God. Even though it is a very deep union like we learned last week. It's a varin de malka, but it's still a varin de malka, it's not the melech. Torah is the melech. And that's why the Talmud Torah. Have a good night.